Welcome to another Chef Knives to Go Quick Look product review. I'm Steve Gamache. What we have right now is the Zakuri AS or Aogami Super Petty 210mm knife. So the way this is constructed, it has a hard core cutting edge steel of what's known as Aogami Blue Paper Super reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. This steel is typically taken to a fairly high hardness, and this is pretty typical, 63, maybe 64 Rockwell, so fairly high hardness. It keeps a really nice edge and is yet pretty easy to sharpen in the scheme of things. The construction is 3 layers, so on either side of that reactive core cutting edge steel you've got a soft iron reactive cladding, so the entire knife is reactive. The cladding does have what's known as a kudauchi or a blacksmith type finish on it, and then it has some lacquer over the top of that, and for protective coating, some food safe lacquer. So it is an all reactive blade. The weight and dimensions on these will vary a bit. This particular one is 112 grams or 4 ounces, right on the money. The edge length is just about 210 on the nose, which is about 8¼ inches, and then the overall length is about 13.7 inches, a little under 350 millimeters. These are fairly thick coming out of the spine, so this I measured just a tick over 4 millimeters at the back of the blade, and then about halfway down I got about 2.1, so it thins out quite a bit. Even maybe thickens up just a touch, and then you can see the grind coming in for the tip. The tip is fairly thin itself, way up in the front, and it's not a very tall blade, of course, so it's not going to have it's got a fairly wedgy shape to it just because it's not very tall. The blade height is about 30.5 millimeters, so this is almost, this could double as a sujihiki or slicer as well, a 210. The handle is a very nicely done oval rosewood with a black pack of wood ferrule, and nice fit and finish on the handle install and the tang. The circumference of the handle is about 60 millimeters or 2.4 inches, so it's a fairly small handle which fits the, kind of overall shape and feel for the blade. These are pretty sharp out of the box. I'll give them maybe a 5 out of 10. They've got a pretty decent edge bevel on there, and it's fairly sharp. You can definitely get this steel very sharp if you do your part. It's fairly stiff, especially in the front half, or excuse me, the back half where you've got that spine thickness. And the fit and finish on these, it's fairly rustic, but they've usually got a pretty straight blade on these, and the top is there's pretty hard corners on it, but I wouldn't say it's sharp. And then they've done a little bit of grinding on the choil into the neck, so try to relieve that a little bit, especially on the right side for right-handers. The right side of the blade has some embossed pressed in kanji. And you can see what the kind of texture of it. It's pretty smooth overall. We do have some lacquer on there to help create smoothness, but on the left side of the blade you've got the maker's name, and then some more kanji over there. Every blade's going to be a little bit different. Again, they're a little bit rustic. They've got a kind of a sandblasted gunmetal gray kasumi type finish, faux kasumi finish there down to the core steel peeking out, and then you have your edge bevel on top of that. So we'll do our little beauty shot here. Let's see, what else? Balance point, as you might suspect. Balance point, actually, given the lightness of the handle, there's your balance point right there, which is pretty close to a pinch grip, so it's very light. This particular one, you'll kind of see this on the cutting board, does have a little bit of a dip in the edge profile. This would, if you're going to do a lot of on-board work, you might need to tweak this profile a little bit, but it has kind of a little bit of a dip right here. There's a bump there and a bump there. You can kind of see a fulcrum point right there and another fulcrum point right there. So there's a little bit of a dip in here. This wouldn't be too hard to tweak a little bit on a stone running the knife actually like this, but you could kind of tweak that a little bit and clean that up. But depending on what you were doing with it, it may or may not make a difference. If you're just using it as a slicer, it probably wouldn't matter a whole lot. But this is what the profile looks like. You've got a fairly low tip on there, so I'm not going to get real high. I'm starting to dig in the tip at that point, so again, you could tweak that with a sharpening and sweep that last millimeter or two up a little bit if you wanted to, and maybe catch a little more height. But you can see doesn't have a lot of belly towards the front. So, but real interesting knife if you're looking for something that's either a small slicer or a long petty. Very interesting blade. AS steel is really nice stuff. It is all reactive, so you'll have to keep an eye on it, but really cool knife. So this is the Zakuri Aogami Super Petty 210mm knife.